Have you ever had a dream that felt so real you weren't able to tell the difference between the dream world and the real world? Were you once a kid that ran down the street with their arms stretched wide, dreaming of flight? Well, I am that kid. I am that dreamer, and so are you. It doesn't matter if you live 1,000 miles away. Invite me into your life. I can help you with your private pilot's license, your instrument, your commercial, and become a certificated flight instructor.
My uncle is a fantastic flight instructor.
Just like you, I am learning and growing every day as a flight instructor. Let's do this. Start today. Sign up for my class. You'll be glad that you did. Hello and good day. My name is Michael Richardson. Thank you so much for buying my masterclass on how to become a private pilot. Let's jump right into the knowledge. Now, I've been flying for 13 years. When I got my private pilot's license, my instructor just wanted to make it to the airlines, and he didn't quite know how to teach me. There would be a lot of things I struggled with, to which he would reply, read the chapter. This was very frustrating for me, and I barely passed my private pilot check ride. That's right, I barely passed my private pilot check ride. Now you might be thinking, why am I going to listen to this guy that barely passed his private pilot check ride? Because it lit a fire within me to master these concepts and then teach them to the world. I said, you know what, this shouldn't happen to anybody else. And I dedicated the next 10 years of my life to mastering these concepts, to gaining experience. And as my luck bag ran out, my experience bag grew, and I grew into a knowledgeable pilot with a lot of experience. I've flown for I was a corporate pilot. I've flown privately. I've flown for fun. I've flown around the country. I've flown to a lot of places, and I've got a lot of experience and a lot of things that I could teach you. I could teach in different ways, and my instructor just couldn't do that. My instructor really just failed me. And not trying to be negative, I'm just trying to say that that shouldn't happen to you. So let's jump right into picking the right flight school and picking the right instructor, right? You should pick a flight school that has a good maintenance department. You should pick a flight school that has a good culture, a good communication system, and a good flight schedule app. I really enjoy Flight Schedule Pro. That's a fantastic app. I highly, highly recommend it. Picking the right flight instructor. Fly with a couple different ones and figure out which one speaks to you in the best learning style, the best communication style for you. Ideally, you want a flight instructor that you just understand and you two mesh, you click well, and you just click well. There shouldn't be any ego, any headbutting in the sky, on the ground, nothing like that. You should just effortlessly get the concepts that they're trying to communicate, and if you don't, you just say, hey, I don't get that at all, and they should be able to shift into another way to teach it. Now, not all flight instructors are perfect, so there's going to be holes. That's why you should fly with a team of flight instructors. There should be a check pilot. Every stage of the way, you should fly with a different pilot, a check pilot that assesses your knowledge and your holes, and then your main instructor would fill in those holes. In order to be prepared for the lesson, you have to do your homework. You have to know what to expect the next lesson. So it would be very beneficial if you and your flight instructor worked off of a syllabus. Now, you don't have to have a specific syllabus. You could use your flight instructor's syllabus. You could use the school's syllabus. It would greatly benefit you to know what's going to be next in your flight training, in your experience. What's the next adventure for you? Okay, moving forward. Next, we're going to talk about references, materials that you need to have before you start your flight lessons. Now, your main instructor might not tell you this because maybe they're busy, maybe it got lost in the fray, but I am here to guide you through every step of the way to get your private pilot's license, right? So here it is. The FAR AIM is a very thick book, and it's used to beat students over the head with it. No, it's used, the first book you want to get is the FAR AIM, and it's written by lawyers. kind of hard to understand, and there's easier ways to learn these things, and there's different books for that. But essentially, it's all in the FAR AIM. Now, you want to get the most current one, and you want to look at the study guide in the front of the book. My instructor never told me about this. He just said, learn this book. And it was so daunting that my heart started to palpitate as he pulled it out of the drawer of some of our lessons. And I didn't quite understand how to learn. This is a big one. This is a big one. So in the front, you go to the study guide list, you start chipping away at the different parts. Now there's two main parts of the book. There's part 61 and there's part 91. 61 is the certification, the experience that you need in order to get your private pilot's license. You know, the certification. Can you read and write? Can you speak English? Are you at least 17? Do you have your, these things, different things? Your instructor will go over the qualifications that you need. You need to get a medical exam as well. That's on part 61. And after you get your private pilot's license, you need to maintain currency. Now there's currency and then there's proficiency. Currency is what you need to maintain legality. Proficiency, however, is safe. So I'll leave it up to you which one that you're going to go with. I highly recommend proficiency. In order to solo an aircraft, you have to be proficient in all phases of flight before you can leave the practice area and before we boot you out of the nest and say, go to another airport. You have to be proficient. Now, that's part 61. Part 91 is the rules of the road. There's stop signs on the street, and you have to stop before you cross you need to look both ways. You have to stay on this side of the dotted lines in the road. There's speed limits. There's right-of-way rules. There are drinking and driving rules. Same thing applies for the sky. There are altitude rules. There are airspace rules. There's rules for drinking and flying. They call 8 hours from bottle to throttle. Different things like that. Okay, so that's part 61, part 91. Another one's part 43. That's the maintenance department. That's the maintenance section. These are the things that you can do as a private pilot. You don't need to go to the shop. You can go ahead and do it, and you just log it in your logbook and the engine logbook if it's your aircraft. If it's a school's aircraft, hey, my school has a squawk sheet. A squawk is just something wrong with the aircraft. So you go ahead and squawk it in operative, and then the maintenance department comes right out and they fix it. Man, I work for one of the best flight schools. I won't get into that because you could be thousands of miles away, friend. It doesn't matter. Thank you for inviting me into your life. I know that you are either thinking about flight training or you're in flight training, and maybe you're caught in a rut. I am going to give you my personal email. I want you to reach out and tell me your story. Tell me what got you into aviation in the first place. I would love to get to know each and every one of you personally. Okay, let's move forward. The next thing you need to know is a chart supplement. This is the next book that you need. Now, a chart supplement is good for about 2 months. The FAR AIM is good for a year, by the way. So the chart supplement's good for a little under 2 months. Now, this book is going to give you all available information regarding different airports that you go to. Now, legally, you have to become familiar with all information regarding a flight. We'll get more into that. But the chart supplement is where you're going to get the information for the runways, the airport information, right? What are the frequencies in order to tell a tower, Starship, we're coming in for a landing. What's the weather frequency to get the weather, to figure out where the wind's coming from? What elevation? What's the traffic pattern altitude? These kinds of things are in the chart supplement. Now, what you need to do is sit down with your flight instructor, or maybe send him a text. I'm open texter with all my students, and I'm saying, hey, these are the airports that I want you to become familiar with because these are our training airports. There's going to be about 5 of them in the area that you go to and you train for. Now, you want to have them tapped out and you want to have them accessible. Now, modern day technology has allowed technology to flourish inside the cockpit. There's glass cockpit, which just means there's a screen. Some of it's touchscreen. A lot of pilots fly with iPads these days with applications like ForeFlight. ForeFlight is changing the way that we fly. I absolutely love this app. ForeFlight's the best. Now, you can't necessarily just use technology in the beginning. You have to learn bare skins and knives. It's a rite of passage more than anything. Now, the examiners are getting into becoming they're accepting for flight, but some of them still fail your electronic flight bag because it happens. I'll tell you this, sometimes on takeoff, the way the sun is in the cockpit, my ForeFlight has overheated before. What do? You need a backup. You need a backup source. So in your check ride, your examiner might say, your ForeFlight just overheated. Now you got to pull out either your backup ForeFlight on your phone. I highly recommend you start with a map, a sectional chart, excuse me. Start with a sectional chart. Okay, you also need E6B. That's going to be your flight computer. It tells you your wind. It tells you your time, speed, and distance. It's the trifecta. All right, things of three. What the E6B will do for you, there's time, speed, and distance, right? And if you know two of them, doesn't matter which two, the third one's a given. That's why I like to teach that. And the E6B is daunting when you first look at it, but we'll dive into that. We'll have a special video to dive right into that. Okay, we talked about the FAR/AIM, the chart supplement, the E6B, the sectional chart, and then here's the two handbooks that you need to truly understand how to fly and the ground knowledge. The Airplane Flying Handbook for the flight. It's an ASA certified book. Very good book. Breaks into detail things like slow flight, power on and power off stalls, steep turns, etc. And for the knowledge part of it, we call it the PHAK, the Pilot Handbook of Aeronautical Knowledge. You get these two books and it's all you need. Instead of those two books, if you want to buy the Jeppesen book, you can buy the Jeppesen book. It's all in one, the Jeppesen Private Pilot book. There's another one. I can't think of the name. What's that? Gleim. So you can buy the Gleim book. Now the Gleim is for you analytical minds out there. It isn't as colorful. It does have some pictures in there, but it's very analytical. The Airplane Flying Handbook and the PHAK I use personally. I highly recommend those two books. A lot of information in those books. I mean, if you start reading the aerodynamics section, your head will spin, because that book will get you not only your private pilot, it's the same book for your further ratings. As you get deeper and deeper into aviation, you start the book will grow with you. The book has just a ton of information in there. But I will have a video on exactly how to read this book. There's a strategy for getting your private pilot's license. My main goal for you ladies and gentlemen is to save you thousands of dollars and to save you hours of flight training and hopefully save you a headache. I want you to pass your private pilot check ride with confidence, with flying colors. That's my main goal for you. Okay, so that all being said, let's go ahead and take a quick break. And my second module is going to be, once you have this material, now what? All right, Mike, I bought the material. Now what do I do? We're going to dive deeper into how to become prepared for your first flight lesson. But I'll break it down for you just real quickly. So here's what it is. Minimally, you want to be flying 2 to 3 days a week. Minimally. And 2-hour blocks is the minimum that you want to do. Now, I understand flight training is not cheap. So maybe you can only afford 3 days a week. Maybe you can only afford 2-hour blocks. Okay? You need to come an hour early. Pre-flight the aircraft when you're able, and make sure that your flight instructor, the first couple lessons, they teach you how to pre-flight an aircraft, because that's going to save you a ton of time. First thing you should do is learn how to pre-flight the aircraft by yourself. So have your instructor go over the pilot operating handbook, and it's just going to basically, it spells out exactly how to walk around the aircraft and what to check for. You're checking for every nut and bolt, every moving surface. You're turning lights on and whatnot. It's not super hard. It's just getting used to. It's just the newness of everything. Honestly, after about 2 times of doing it, you could do it by yourself. Okay, you come an hour early for the lesson. Your first lesson with your flight instructor, sorry, I'm excited, very excited. Your first lesson with your flight instructor should be a ground. You should get the expectations from him. of what he expects of you. You should get the schedule down. Okay, Mr. or Mrs. Flight Instructor, how many days a week are you available? Is this the right flight instructor for you? Oh, the flight instructor says I'm only available 1 day a week. That's not going to work for anybody. You need a flight instructor that's dedicated for you, the student, right? 4 days a week, 3-hour blocks. Man, now we're talking. If you do that, you can get your pilot's license definitely within a year. If you go 5 days a week, 3-hour blocks and 2 ground sessions sometime in the week, you can get it within 6 months, maybe sooner. 2 days a week, you can get it in about a year and a half with maybe 3-hour blocks, two days a week, 3-hour blocks. Okay, so you come an hour early. Let's say your block's 9 to 11. You come at 8. You pre-flight the aircraft, you sit in that aircraft, and you become familiar with the gauges, with the instruments, with the knobs, with the controls, the dials, the trim. And you chair fly, emergency procedures. You chair fly, actually what you should do is chair fly what you need to do for that day. Let's say you're talking about slow flight, right? You get your aircraft flying handbook out and you learn, okay, what is slow flight? What is slow flight? What do I need to do? So step 1, clear the area, right? Step 2, start slowing the aircraft down. If it's a Cessna, put the carb heat on. Step 3, right? All these things. And you essentially chair fly the slow flight. Now you want to create a neural pathway to slow flight. It's almost like if you visualize a motorcycle track. The deeper the track, there's deeper indents where the motorcycle riders, they create a groove, right? They create a groove. And those are the habits. So the more neural pathways you create, the deeper the groove, the easier it will be for you to stay in those habits. And whenever things get busy in the air and you're trying to maintain, control the aircraft, you are going to fall into that groove because you studied. I guarantee you this is going to work. It's going to work for you. Okay, so that's the strategy of an hour early, is what it's going to do for you. The first half an hour of, let's just say it's a 2-hour block. The first half an hour, you should have FAR 91-103, which is raw fat. You should have all the information out for your flight instructor. The first couple times, you're going to need him to go over it with you. Hey, how do I get this information? How do I look at the performance charts? I'm going to go over that with you in the upcoming module. I'm going to go over exactly how to get this information. Okay, so your flight instructor has told you where to find the information, and you're working out the kinks and you get in the grooves. Now, let's say that you have this information for your flight instructor, and you guys could talk about the flight. You could talk about slow flight. You could talk about what's to be expected if it's a towered operation, if it's a non-towered operation. What am I expected to experience up there? What are the different sort of anomalies that are happening? That's the first half an hour. The next part is an hour. That's the flight. All right, that's where you're actually going to fly. The last half an hour to 20 minutes is going to be putting away the aircraft and debriefing. All right, guys, I hope this was really, really helpful for you. Let's move on to the module 2, and I'll see you guys in a little bit. Thank you so much.